course, your wealth, your position, your fame, your degrees, your accomplishments will not benefit you. إِلَّا مَنْ أَتَى اللَّهَ بِقَلْبٍ سَلِيمٍ. Only the one who returns to Allah with a pure heart, they are the ones that are saved. Who lived the life seeking the pleasure of Allah and doing all that they did sincerely for the sake of Allah. May Allah make us amongst them. So start with the end in mind. That everything we do, everything we strive for, everything we accomplish, even in the matters of our dunya, we're doing it purely for the sake of Allah. And that's the beautiful thing for the believer, because for the believer, 24/7, they are in a state of worship. 24 hours a day. There is not a moment that passes by the believer except they're in a state of worship. How? They're going to work, but they're not working just to have wealth in the dunya. They're working so they have wealth, so that they can feed the hungry, so that they can support the effort of deen, so that they can strengthen Islam in the West. Their work becomes worship. Their time with their family is worship. Their rest is worship. Even using the bathroom, you do it according to the sunnah, it is a form of worship. SubhanAllah, for the believer, 24/7, they're drawing closer to Allah, subhanahu wa ta'ala, with the right intention and with the right action. But remember, that is inevitable and it is near. And so that must remind us to have absolute sincerity in all that we do. Now, with that being said, I think one of the challenges of the Muslim community is many of us fall into one of two areas of strength. There are some Muslims that, mashallah, are very successful in the political space, are very successful in activism, but unfortunately are far from the deen. And there are other Muslims that, mashallah, Allah bless them, they don't miss a salah in the masjid. And they're very particular on their sunnah. And yet, at the same time, they're not really involved in the affairs of the community and in the struggle for justice in this world. And unfortunately, for the benefit of the Ummah, both, I would say, are lacking. And what we need is our youth to come up with a solid foundation where they are grounded in their deen, connected with that Allah within their hearts, seeking the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in all that they do, perfecting their worship, adhering to the sunnah, and then for the sake of Allah, striving to be as successful, as influential, as impactful as possible. As Muslims, we can't afford to be mediocre. As Muslims, we really shouldn't have minimum wage jobs, except for a brief period to get on our feet. See, both the millionaire and the minimum wage worker, they both have the same amount of hours in their day, they've just used it differently. And I truly believe after building our faith, as Muslims, we should strive for strength. So long as we have balance. And we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about the foundation of faith. We're going to talk about the balance that is necessary. And after achieving that balance, the importance for growth for us to have impact. It starts with the foundation of our faith. The number one thing that any young Muslim man or woman can have is the right mentor. Having a shaykh, having a scholar, having a murshid, having a guide that has studied the faith, that can be their mentor on the spiritual path. The very basics of Islam is to learn halal and haram, is to learn the fiqh of wudu, the fiqh of salah. Those are the basics. After that comes learning tawakkul, how you trust Allah, hoping that the love of Allah, the dhikrullah. When you learn tawakkul, you will never compromise your religion to please others. Because you trust Allah and you understand only Allah is in charge. One of the disasters affecting the youth in the community is their desire to impress others. And therefore, Muslim youth sometimes sacrifice their faith, sacrifice their identity, trying to please others. Because you see people as too big and Allah is too small. But if all you see is Allah, you gain a strength of independence. you don't care what others think, you don't care what others say. The only opinion you care about is the opinion of the righteous, the opinion of your mentors, the opinion of your teachers. Yes, otherwise you don't care about what people think. And this gives you a backbone to be proud of your identity as a Muslim, to visibly identify as a Muslim, and then to excel in service to humanity, while being visibly a follower of Muhammad Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. As I mentioned, many are strong in the dunya, and many are strong in the deen. But to maximize our ability to have an impact, and that's what it's all about. That's what the Sadaqah Jariyah is about. It's about establishing for yourself the best of righteous deeds. We know Allah's pleasure is found in helping others, in feeding the hungry, in standing up for the oppressed, in giving da'wah, in supporting the effort of the deen. So our effort in the dunya, it is a means of strengthening our position in the akhirah. It's very important to understand the Prophet said, what a blessing it righteous wealth is for the righteous servant. Some of the Sahaba were envious that some of the wealthy Sahaba, they were funding the Muslim armies. They were supporting the effort of da'wah. They were using their wealth to establish the deen. And so the Sahaba, some of the poorer Sahaba, responded that, they're leading us to Jannah. And so the Prophet gave them some tasbihah to do after Salah. Tasbihah to do Subhanallah 33 times, Alhamdulillah 33 times, Allahu Akbar 34 times after every Salah. He said, do this dhikr, and you will, inshallah, also gain in reward. And the wealthy Sahaba saw that the poor Sahaba were doing this dhikr. They said, what is this? And they started doing it too. And this is the blessing of Allah, allowing some people to excel both in deen and in dunya, in their dhikr and in their sadaqah. And of course, we know the hadith, there's hadith that indicate on average that the poor will enter Jannah 500 years before the rich. That's for the average. Don't think that there cannot be, amongst even the Ashra Quraysh, the 10 guaranteed Jannah, some are very low. The reason I mention this is when you fight the Zionist lobby, and you're fighting AIPAC, and you're fighting corruption, and you're trying to serve the Ummah, it's a lot easier to do that when you come from a position of strength, when you come from a position of wealth. We are not outnumbered when it comes to the fight against injustice and genocide and evil and Zionism. We're just simply out-organized. And financial resources is often a key way of having organization and strength. But remember, wealth comes with its own fitna. For the person whose heart is not attached to Allah, they get deceived by their wealth. And they may start using it to displease Allah, to disobey Allah. SubhanAllah, I sat with one of the wealthiest Americans who was known as the king of Instagram. His lifestyle was all of the things that are very forbidden of yachts and women and parties and drugs and jets and clubbing and all this haram stuff, astaghfirullah. And I was sitting with him after he attended Salat al-Jum'ah one day. He was not Muslim, but he was coming to learn. He said, Hassan, I did everything everyone dreams of, and it never made me happy. It didn't bring me happiness. I'm willing to sacrifice all of that just to be a force for good in the world. And this is the sad thing. A lot of time I see some Muslim youth, they dream of all of these things that money can get you, but those who have had money and have access to all those things eventually burnt out from it. It didn't bring them joy. As Allah mentions, verily in the remembrance of Allah, the hearts find peace. So understand that wealth can come with fitna. And it's dangerous that people can use that wealth to disobey Allah, to forget Allah, to cause injustice. But if your heart is connected with Allah, then wealth can truly be a tremendous blessing. So my message for the Muslim youth, don't settle to be mediocre. Don't settle for a 9-to-5 job where you're barely able to cover your bills. Gain as much strength as you can for the sake of Allah, and then use that strength to benefit and serve the Ummah. So number one is building a strong foundation. Strong foundation that each and every one of us needs is having the right suhbah, the right companionship. Number two, salah, and especially salah in the masjid as frequently as possible. There is a special light that is put in the hearts for praying in the masjid. You will not find it anywhere else. And a connection with the Quran, the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Those are the three foundations that are absolutely critical. After these foundations, we need to build discipline and knowledge. What makes successful people different than unsuccessful people is successful people are disciplined. They have targets, they have goals, they set an agenda. And it's very important, likewise, each and every one of us sets disciplined targets and goals for what we accomplish every day, every week, every month, and every year to achieve the strength that we need. In life, there is daily necessary things that we must do to have a healthy level of growth. When it comes to this, we need to take care of our spiritual health, we have to take care of our physical health, we have to take care of our intellectual health. Physical health, spiritual health, intellectual health, financial health, and our family. These 5 things: spiritual, physical, intellectual, financial, and family. What we must do, each and every one of us, is identify what bare minimum must we do for each and every one of these things, 5 things every single day. What are we doing to grow spiritually? What are we doing to grow financially? What are we doing to maintain our physical health? What are we doing to take care of our family? And there is a bare minimum that we can and should do for each and every one of these 5 things. Once those 5 things, and by the way, doing the bare minimum for those 5 things won't necessarily make you super successful. But there's a bare minimum that must be done where you can have a balance. Once you've achieved, you've done your minimum daily ibadah, you've done your minimum daily exercise, you've spent some minimum time with the family, and you've spent some time growing yourself intellectually, then you can dedicate time for the exponential growth that you want to accomplish. And each and every one of us should identify what high-level impact we want to have. Some of us may want to focus on business, some of us may focus on politics, some of us may focus on da'wah. And as long as we're meeting the bare minimum for the 5 things I mentioned, physical health, spiritual health, intellectual health, financial health, and family, then whatever remainder time we have, we can spend on other goals for growth. The problem is sometimes we focus on the goals of growth and we make it all about a career, all about growing our finances, all about having a political impact, but then we neglect our spiritual health, we neglect our exercise, we neglect our family, and in the end we may grow very quickly wherever we focus. But when our health falls apart, or our family falls apart, or our religion falls apart, everything falls apart. So, to achieve practical success in the field of activism, very important, set daily and weekly goals for those 5 things. And again, financial, physical, spiritual, intellectual, and family. And work to achieve those goals, and on top of that, dedicate what you can for the benefit of the Ummah. In terms of what should our priorities be as a community? And this is something that we've been thinking about and studying for years, because there's so many different causes and there's so many different emergencies really nowadays. But ultimately, it comes down to investing in 5 key areas as a Muslim community. And not every one of us can excel in those 5 spaces, but we should all have a role to play in each of them. Number 1 is preserving Islam for the next generation. That is the most important thing. If we do everything else, but our children are ashamed of their faith, are not proud of their faith, are not sharing the beauty of Islam with the next generation, then we'll ultimately fail. So supporting Islamic education for the next generation. And again, when it comes to Islamic education, it should fall into 2 key areas. One is the basics, which is understanding the basic aqidah, understanding the basic fiqh, understanding the basic rules of the faith. But more importantly, is the character and the qualities the faith builds, as I mentioned, like trusting Allah, loving Allah, remembering Allah, having a good opinion of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Those qualities where our youth have a strong connection with Allah in their heart, that gives them the strength and the courage to face the challenges that we as a community may be facing. The number two most important obligation after preserving Islam for the next generation, da'wah, sharing the faith with the society around us. This was the message that all God's messengers were sent, was to invite people to La ilaha illallah Muhammadan Rasulullah. And we do it from a place of strength, a place of service. Again, the best form of da'wah is when you yourself have something to offer those around you. When you're able to help them through their difficult times, when you're able to support them, whether it's in charity, service, whatever field it's in, and then you're embodying the sunnah of Rasulullah, and then you're inviting people to La ilaha illallah with wisdom and knowledge. So number one is youth, number two is da'wah, number three, very, very important, to be politically involved. And one of the very simple ways to do that, especially in small communities, is we really can have an application or a list of all of the registered voters from the community. And we have a way of communicating with them, whether it's through an app, through some sort of platform, where we have all of the registered voters, and then we have a committee within the community that identifies who's running for office locally, sets up a meeting with them and say, listen, I represent 1,000 voters. And we can even raise X amount of dollars for your campaign, but where do you stand on this issue, this issue, this issue, and we analyze it and we support those candidates that make sense for our community. But it takes organization. I would say that this is probably the most important thing right now, because unfortunately, those that support genocide are heavily invested in this. This is why, right now, for the first time in America's history, more Americans are against Israel than those that are for Israel. But that hasn't been translated in the political process, because most of the donors are supportive of Israel. And so we just need to, again, put our research together and organize like they are. So I would say political involvement is the third most important thing for us to do. And times are changing. I think Israel will never recover from how the world, including how most Americans see it. And now even taking money from AIPAC is starting to be seen as a liability. You have more and more candidates proudly saying we don't take money from AIPAC. But we need to provide the alternative, my brothers and sisters. So political involvement, I would say, is the third most important thing. Four, we still have to invest in legal organizations like CARE that serve to protect the community legally. And five, engaging in media engagement. Alhamdulillah, I don't want to talk too much longer. It's already late, and I want to leave some time for some questions, inshallah, and discussion. Well, when it comes to effective Islamic activism, if I were to summarize it in a nutshell, it starts with having a strong foundation of faith within the heart that is achieved through the righteous company and right mentorship, and then it is effective when it comes from a position of strength. So as Muslims, we should never settle to be mediocre. The wealthier, the more influential, the more successful we are, the easier it is to have an impact. The problem comes from when we have good people that are righteous and they're practicing the religion, but they don't have any resources. And then you have people who have resources, but they have no foundation in the faith. Let us be the examples of those who bring both worlds together, who have a strong heart of faith, but also have work hard, who have the resources that are necessary to have an impact. And in the end, the results are only in Allah's hands. And we should remind ourselves that as long as we are fighting the good fight, and as long as we are using the time Allah has given us in service of the deen, and striving for excellence, then we are winning no matter what. Allah doesn't look at your results, He looks at your effort and your sincerity. And remember this, as long as you are standing for justice, standing for the deen, and in service of humanity, you are winning, no matter what the results are. But when you see people around you suffering, even if you yourself are winning because you're doing the right thing, still out of love and compassion, you want to be in a position to effectively help those that are suffering. And it's much easier to do that from a position of strength. As Allah says, وَأَنَّ لَيْسَ لِلْإِنسَانِ إِلَّا مَا سَعَى, human being only have what they want for. So let us, and then the Quran says, وَهُوَ الْأَمَنِ فَسَلَ اللَّهُ عَمَلَكُمْ وَرَسُولُهُ وَالْمُؤْمِنُونَ. Allah says, do what you're going to do. But remember, Allah is looking, and then the messenger and the believers are also watching. We can't settle for mediocrity. We have to strive for excellence in all that we do. And through that excellence, inshallah, we beacons of light and guidance for humanity. With that, inshallah, we can open up for any questions. And I know from another brother had a presentation, a good presentation as well, so I'm in that for inshallah.
Is there any like specific issues you have seen, like people in smaller communities have brought up to like their local governments, like to help in, for example, against the genocide or speaking up against Israel?
So you have to understand the people, the people who control the U.S. budget, right, that send billions of dollars to Israel, they're in Congress. Generally, people don't just jump right into Congress. A lot of times they start at the very local level. And it could be county commissions, school boards, townships, different local races, and eventually they go and they may reach Congress. And the problem that we've often had is trying to get involved way too late. You know, a lot of times these guys have been buddies with their APAC handler for decades. And so what I urge the community to do is, first of all, excel in whatever field you are. So as a lawyer, be a great lawyer, go and network with the judges. Like I do an event with the judges yesterday. I'm sitting at the table with all the judges that rule for all my clients, and like, it's good to see you here, we can see more Muslims around because it makes a difference. And so I use that to say, at the local level, excel at what you do, and support candidates for even local races that have nothing to do with the big picture. One of the, like international affairs, because one day they may be in a position to impact international affairs, but secondly is they may actually want to impact affairs like today. They may be able to impact whether the masjid gets approval to increase capacity, or whether a school can be open, a lot of impact on local things. So I would say pretty much most of the races locally are important. They may eventually, the people in those positions may eventually reach a high position. And I would say it's very important that we don't stick within our silos. In whatever field we're in, whatever business we're in, excel and network with others. So I was speaking with a Muslim lawyer yesterday, and he was telling me he knows the U.S. attorney, Van he's like, I used to do trials with him. You know, that's one relationship that's there. God forbid, if it's ever necessary, then now we know there's a crisis, perhaps when we chip, perhaps even in the church, crisis can be averted. But that relationship started 20, 30 years ago. And that's what I'm saying. Build relationships. I want Muslims to really build relationships with the community as a whole. But don't do it in a way where you're compromising your faith and you're compromising your values. That's why a solid Islamic foundation is key. I think the problem I also fear is like some of the people really want to have taqwa, really want to be practicing, so then they just don't mix with anyone. And they don't know how to network, and they don't know how to build relationships. It is possible to do that while maintaining your Islamic identity. So build your Islamic identity, and then in the field of law, in the field of politics, build relationships, get to know people, and maintain those relationships. And inshallah, you can be in a position where that relationship can be a benefit to them at the right time. Yes.
So when we get out of here and we go back to school, work, whatever, on Monday, what's your biggest advice on like how to advocate or how to present the Palestinian cause or Muslim causes in general, especially with like the development of a peace deal or whatever that means?
I think the biggest, right now, the biggest thing is still calling people towards that. Wherever you're at in your work, in your school, be the best at what you're doing. Excel at what you're doing. Be helpful
to your colleagues, be helpful to your classmates, and find ways with wisdom to share the beauty of Islam with those around you. If they find Islam, all the politics and everything else will fall into place as well. And then their soul is saved. But if one of them stands with us for Palestine, but they pass away as a mushrik, then that's a tragedy. Remember, the losers aren't those who lose the world. The losers are those who've lost their soul. And I don't believe in a dichotomy, like, as you can see in my life, we strive for both. But the priority is now always. Now, in terms of the practical political considerations, one of the main messages is we need to keep America first. Really. Our tax dollars should be at home. Isn't it outrageous that these politicians are sending billions of dollars overseas so Israel, right, state can slaughter children? Meanwhile, inflation is at an all-time high, and people are unemployed, and people are struggling to buy groceries at home. So say, as an American, I believe our tax dollars should remain at home, and I think we have to vote out every member of Congress that puts Israel above America. Even if they put Palestine above America, keep America first. America first means keeping our money and our weapons at home. That's all, but really that's all the woman needs by this America to stay out of it. And that's how you communicate. You talk to the man, you pay taxes. Man, how much of our taxes went to Israel? Isn't that insane? Oh, well, Israel keeps us safe. It's our ally. How is it our ally? What does it do for us? How does it benefit us? Go online and see all the crimes that she was doing against humanity. Why do you want to be associated with it? It doesn't, and more Americans every single day, more and more conservative, more and more MAGA are waking up to this. And speak their language, and that's a true language. Like, it's a great thing to keep American tax dollars at home. So that's how you speak about it. Say, let's not vote for people that are sending our money overseas. And you have MTG and others that come out very strong on this. Anyone else?
May I ask what obstacles you've observed in our American youth in building their Muslim identity, and what strategies you might recommend to address them?
I mean, so I don't know how it is nowadays, but when I was growing up, I think the immigrant colonized mentality is what was holding back our youth. So a lot of parents were keeping their children away from the masjid, were telling the children to shave their beard, not to be visible as Muslim, and to hide their identity. That was a problem, and it comes also from a place of ignorance, where people don't understand their rights, they don't understand their faith as well. But I think, mashallah, there's a lot of great youth that are growing up in Islam that are proud of their faith and their identity. I think, as I mentioned to you last time, right, each masjid needs to invest in mentorship, in paid mentorship, full-time people that bring the youth together in a community, and first of all, help them build their faith and their identity, and then organizing them in meaningful and impactful ways. But we have to prioritize it. We have to prioritize it. And I think it's long overdue that Albuquerque doesn't have a full-time youth director to do the message that you have here. I mean, that's one thing I'd like to hear next time is that you guys have invested in them. Any other questions? Right, I think we'll wrap up, and the brother wants to do a quick presentation. One final request, inshallah. Look, I'd like to combine inspiring the Muslim community, protecting the Muslim community, and charity all together. As you know, alhamdulillah, so far the ceasefire, despite Israel breaking it numerous times already, is holding. There's a lot of work to be done, and will continue to be a lot of work to be done. So I want to thank the community for those that contributed today at Jum'ah for Gaza. As I mentioned, many of the most active churches on the ground in Gaza. We are trying, alhamdulillah, to provide over 100,000 meals inside Gaza every weekend. Last weekend we did 200,000, alhamdulillah. And there's just the amount of work and cleanup there is unimaginable. Alhamdulillah, we raised about 20,000 during Jum'ah today. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward you. Our goal was 25. That will actually, the $25,000, it's actually enough to provide 2,500 meals, alhamdulillah.
it makes a huge difference. So we're just $5,000 short. I want to ask if you didn't get a chance to contribute today, and if we have 10 people that can contribute 500 or 5 people that contribute 1,000, alhamdulillah, you can pull out your phones and go to METW and see the work that they're doing on the ground. They do live distributions of the charity work regular and every single day. They're on the ground. So please, inshallah, if you haven't made a contribution, this is your opportunity to provide an emergency aid to people. And that's a stop by and see me before you leave, inshallah. With that, we'll welcome our brother. I guess he was doing a presentation, inshallah. Subhanahu wa ta'ala. Salam ala mursalin. Alhamdulillah.
Brother, just remain seated for exactly 5 minutes, inshallah. It's not going to take more than 5 minutes. Yeah. Alma, can you put it down a little more? Okay, is that like our okay, that's enough. Okay, I think I'm gonna be sitting like enough for a few minutes. Okay, so my brothers, my name is Hassan, for those of you who know me. I've been in the community since 2006 when I came from Egypt as a full rights scholar. I was teaching at Iran for some time, and this is where I got my master's and PhD in education. And then I worked at Iran for a total of about 15 years, 10 years. And I worked in Qatar and Egypt, and right now I'm an instructional coach at Al-Qaeda Public Schools. So here we're proposing a new charter school. Many of you know that there's an impact of the Islamic wars, or what we call the Dubs, on UNESCO. And this is something that many of us are proud about, we talk about, but we have not capitalized on. So this is basically where the school comes in. So it's going to be a charcoal high school. Can you go to the next slide? It's right here. So it's going to be a charcoal school, which means it's going to be funded by the state. And for students who attend the school, don't have to pay tuition. It is going to be project-based, which means the students will be working on projects. The theme and the topics of the projects will be derived from the impact of the Islamic Moorish spin on UNESCO, which means we're going to look at the architecture, for example, of Alhambra Palace, for example, and other places in Cordoba and North Africa, and how we can use those ones as the topics, where the students will study physics, chemistry, math, geometry, and engineering as well. With that in mind, we'll be capitalizing on the history of the Moors, or the Andalus, on New Mexico. Also, they will be using this same theme for studying geography, biology, and history as well. What's important, what's more important, it's going to be STEAM, like science, technology, engineering, and math. What's different from other existing schools, including other charter schools, is that inshallah is going to cover Arabic, because the students understand Islamic stream. Part of it is going to be the study of Arabic. So there will be Arabic 1, Arabic 2, and advanced Arabic. There will be what we call Middle Eastern history. Middle Eastern history will include early Islamic history, and will include also the other histories that came after. So this one will be in the form of elective classes, where if you have a child in the school, you can decide that your child will take world history or Middle Eastern history, for example. The same thing, you can decide if you want to take Spanish or you want to take Arabic. Also, we'll be studying literature, because it's sort of like a core concepts and the skills that the students have to gain in order to graduate high school. for students to graduate high school, they need to take 25 credit hours that include math, science, history, and English. So we want all of those things will come from the impact of Spain or Islamic endeavors in Mexico. Can you go to the QR code, please? Okay, so right now, just if you can hold your phones, please, I would appreciate your input and feedback. Your feedback is going to be part of the application. Right now, we have an application process which is supposed to end in June 2026, and that will decide if the school will be open, inshallah, August 26 or August 27. We need to have some feedback from people saying if the school is going to be useful or not. There are only 4 questions, and they shouldn't take more than, inshallah, 3-4 minutes from your time. Jazakumullah khair, and if you have any questions, you can just approach me at the time, inshallah. Jazakumullah. And if you can just send you the QR code and fill in the short survey, I would really, really appreciate it. Jazakumullah. Jazakallah khairan.
Everybody, jazakallah for your time and patience with us. Really appreciate your attendance, inshallah. You have dinner ready. If you'd like to, please get some, inshallah.
And like I said, if you haven't done anything for Gaza today, please stop by and see us, inshallah.
Yes, the table is outside as well.
Jazakallah khairan. I'm going to send you the link if you can just I think that's going to go straight into you want me to drive it there? Because I'm not going to go. I'm not driving. Okay. That's much better. That's much better. I mean, I told you, like, honestly. So if you take